you talked about autism in some of the clips I saw.
Yeah.
Is that urine related, or is that like a different
thing? It could be, absolutely, because obviously I'm not going to go into all the things that can create problems for us, but my point is that you think about a child like this, clearly there's some kind of toxin exposure. What is it? And then you've got all these doctors guessing what is it? And then if the parents can afford it and they've got the know-how, they'll go to a functional medicine doctor and they'll run a bunch of tests. So like if I'm right about that, the body has a signaling system that's its own compound pharmacy, which is crazy to think about. Just think about the possibility of intelligent design. If your body is somehow intelligently designed, which it appears to be very evidently, like none of us are going to count how many heartbeats we need to have before we wake up, before we go to sleep, how many we need to take, how many breaths we need to take. It's this autonomic system is servicing us so perfectly well. Why is it that we get delivered all these different hormones and minerals and neurotransmitters, everything, serotonin, dopamine, epinephrine, testosterone, estrogen, it's all in the urine? Why would your body dump it out when you're deficient? And so anyway, my point being that when your body gives you a compound prescription, then it's so valuable. So that child that has that condition, they have information specifically about what they've been poisoned with, because if they do have mercury, they will have antibodies to that mercury in their urine. That is just straight up fact, because it's a concentration of immunoglobulin, and in there is the antibodies. And that's why a lot of these children do better with IVIG, which is an intravenous immunoglobulin, but it's going through these blood banks and it's so expensive. But your own body giving you that prescription, here's what you got, here's what was missing. And then and that's what I'm going back to the womb saying, that's what's happening. The 180 cancer causing chemicals become redundant, that they're in the baby because the urine is where it's concentrating its metabolites to those poisons. The antibody, it's an antibody metabolite form of the toxin. So that mercury, that aluminum, that glyphosate has its compound that the body has filtered in a way that has become non-harmful and bioavailable. So then when it's consumed, it actually causes the removal of it. And that's what we proved in our own study that showed a dramatic reduction in all the toxin levels in that setting. So yes, very powerful. But then red light therapy, which is what's behind me, is certainly a big hitter and very heavily proven for autism and other conditions related to the brain and the gut, and oxygen in the brain, like post-stroke and various conditions like that.
What's the barometer for curing autism? I'm saying, like, what's the barometer for curing autism? Because like there isn't an autism test of like they have this in their blood. It's behaviorally diagnosed, and so it's like you just wait until those behaviors subside for a bit, and you say that counts, or like how do you quantify like long-term peeking back into the lives of these kids?
Yeah, it's ATEC, right? So Autism Treatment Evaluation Checklist, and they could score up to, like, I think the numbers go as high as like maybe 70 or 80 down to 0. And so if the child goes to, I believe, something like under 5 or 3, then they would go into asymptomatic or no longer actively having that issue. It's a 77-item diagnostic assessment tool developed by Bernard Rimland and Stephen Elderson. And so if you score low, then you score low, and it's very clear. And then behaviorally, you could see that. I remember I was at a small get together here in Puerto Rico. It was a medical doctor whose son was 10 and he was still nonverbal, and he's 23 now, completely verbal, and not just verbal. He completed university and everything else, and it has a very normal life. Maybe, I think that there's roughly, and I've got to be really careful with how I say this because these ones are hot buttons, right? So just so you guys know, I answer things in ways that people, you got to kind of dig deeper when I say certain things. But there's around 5,000 cases that are documented of like full-blown autism getting reversed, and this was under certain protocols of which I could just vaguely allude to. But the cool thing is that guys, that they just see like what I'm talking about. If you go over to my Instagram, and you'll hear me talk about it very directly. Exactly, because I've got to be so careful, and I even unsure if I say their names whether it's going to create an issue. So I'll just have to open it up there. But
why do you think it is that, because this stuff is all new to me, I haven't done any due diligence on any of it, but if there was, like, you mentioned the synthetic urea and all those things, it seems like if there was a synthetic way to emulate this, Pfizer or J&J or GlaxoSmithKline would have come out with a version of it to alleviate the symptoms of autism. I don't know if that exists.
Oh yeah, exactly. Okay, so like a synthetic form of urine, right?
Yeah, so they would be like, oh, don't drink your pee, but like if they were secretly keeping this from us or something, and then they would create a synthetic version that they could sell to us for a big markup. Like, you would expect that, or I would expect that.
But they have that's exactly what's happening.
Oh, okay.
Right. So Enzymes of America happened to own Porta-John. So what do you think they did? They ran the numbers on just collecting it straight out of the urinals.
Oh, but people poop in there. That can't be right.
No, I know. Well, the upside
extra stem cells. You think pee has a lot of stem cells, Taylor? What do you hear about my program?
I don't want to hear about your program. Your
it involves
geez, that.
The funny thing is, though, you laugh, but the fecal microbial transplant is very widely accepted now. I've heard of that. Multi-billion-dollar industry. And yes, you'll see cases of IBS and all kinds of chronic gut conditions, and even autism and other conditions getting reversed on fecal microbial transplant, for sure. Like lots, very heavily documented. So Carl's program does work. We see evidence of it in the mainstring. Thanks, Carl, for your contribution.
You're welcome. You're all welcome. Donation. I didn't take a dime. I did all this, for free. It's a nonprofit type thing. We mostly just eat the poop, though. We don't really rub it on anything.
Yeah, he didn't even know there were health benefits.
I had no idea until right now.
Just now. Now you can disguise your fetish.
Red light curing autism thing, right?
Yeah,
so autism is a neurodevelopmental disorder, right? The brain is missing pathways that other people have. How does shining a red light cause the brain to repair itself?
Yep.
What's the mechanism there?
Okay, it's a heavily proven mechanism, and it is all about the mitochondria in the brain cells. And here, what we have with red light is that it's very accessible through the eyes, and I think I feel that that's a very misunderstood and not tapped into methodology, and that's why you'll see the studies on children. There's a 6,400 child 41 clinical trials over 6,400 children with myopia, and red light was the number one that stopped vision worsening in the eye more than ortho K or atropine. But because, just think about that for a second. Eyes are part of the brain. Okay.
I don't think so.
Yeah, look it up.
Really? I will.
Okay, just do it. Let's do it now. Okay, yes, eyes can be considered part of the brain because the retina contains nerve tissue, and the optic is an extension of the central nervous system. During embryonic development, cool. And during embryonic development, the eyes form as an outgrowth of the forebrain, making them a direct and accessible part of the brain. This close connection explains why the eyes are not just sensory organs, but also part of the central nervous system, similar to the brain and spinal cord. Okay. And sorry to kind of,
okay.
No,
it's okay. Really. I don't know. You're fact checking yourself to get it right. That's good. Not bad.
Yeah. Oh no, thank you. I appreciate it. But I was actually saying, sorry to kind of be like, no, I'm right kind of thing. So just try to be cool.
Yeah. We don't know any of this stuff. Because I have like of all the stuff you said, red light was the one that jumped out. Because I don't know, but I have a friend that's like obsessed with red light, and it's like he runs a business that has actually nothing to do with red light, but it's like yoga type of business, and those kind of guys are really into it. And I trust him. He's never mentioned the autism thing. It's more about like general cellular health and like wellness. But I bet if I brought it up to him, he'd say he'd heard something about it. But yeah, I'm more familiar with the red light stuff than the urine.
Yeah.
By a lot.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Absolutely. Red light, very proven science. It should be way more known than what it is right now, because the Nobel Prize was won by Niels Rieberg-Vincent in 1903 for light therapy reversing disease, and it was lupus vulgaris. And it's so annoying that it has been so railroaded. And Dr. Endre Mester in 1967, the Hungarian physician, very much kind of pioneered and coined specifically red light therapy versus just light therapy. So it's not just red light, it's light therapy with blue, green, UVB, violet, and so forth. But then now the last 2 decades, like LED technology really did help make this something that is, you know, completely accessible, and lasers as well. But LEDs then ended up performing at the same level as lasers, but without the extreme cost and overheating and danger issue that comes with something that's high heat, potentially. And so, yeah, the autism aspect and the brain. So, like I gave a reference to eyesight, and in terms of fast regeneration, the UCL University study was fascinating because they took the eyes 3 minutes open. It had to be the morning, and tested the eyesight immediately, and it was a 17% improvement in eyesight on average, but it had to be done in the morning, and it was specifically 670 nanometer light. And whether it was 3 minutes or 45 minutes, it didn't actually make a difference. The outcome was still the same. So there's a certain amount that you, even if you just get a little bit, you look into it,
you just operate in an environment around it. You look in it.
You could look out of it, or you could look into it. But you know, they basically had what looked like flashlights, and they had it right against their eyes, but they did have low irradiance. Like, this is about a 200 milliwatts irradiance, which was associated with, like, I just went through a thyroid study where 96% of the Hashimoto's thyroiditis patients went from an enlarged thyroid to a regular thyroid using 200 milliwatts of power of red light, near infrared, and red. And so that is really powerful for most things. But the eyes, they do have lower settings, which you could either put something like this down to like 10% of the power, or you could be a little bit away, or you could just go, hey, look, there's nothing proven that this is damaging, which is my stance. And that's why I look into it up close, because I'm actually not, my eyesight's, you know, it doesn't have an issue. I'm actually just wanting to get it in my brain for my mood, my happiness, my, you know, functioning, the switching on. And sorry for the roundabout answer on autism, but what I'm saying is you've got visible aspects of very fast improvements in parts of the brain, like the eyes. But then if you go and look at the studies on autism, it's interfacing directly with the mitochondria in the brain. The highest concentration of mitochondria are in brain cells. They can have up to hundreds of thousands in certain parts of the brain cells per cell, whereas, you know, your thyroid or any other organ cell could have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,000. The brain cells have such a high concentration. So I'm saying that that's like really good news, because you've got a straight shot as well. When you got your eyes open, it'll go straight into your brain. And this is why I'm saying that whether it's dementia or Parkinson's, and I'm just a little disappointed that, one, the studies are amazing on all these conditions, whether it's all, you know, dementia and all these different things. I'm a little disappointed that they're not teaching people to do it correctly. I'm saying it's got to go straight through the eyes, and then also go back and around the head and all this. But the children have dramatically different behavioral characteristics, and in it. It's everything from social abilities to, you know, I'm looking through the PubMed studies right here, repetitive behaviors and tics and various you know, sensory overload, sleep disturbances, attention deficit, hyperactivity. All of these, you know, across the board, generally speaking, have dramatic improvements. And it's specifically been studied in the optical window of 600 to 1300 nanometers, which is more typically 600 to 1100. And so, yes, it's working, but it's working the same way with people post-stroke or with cognitive issues. The European Society of Medicine showed in acute long COVID, they could resolve all the cases. It was 100% successful in 62 people with cognitive, complete recovery of cognitive abilities and executive function, resolution of digestive issues, and oxygen above 97% in the blood, and dysapnea resolved, which is shortness of breath. And that was 100% effective. And 60 out of the 62 got better within a single week with doing 64 to 84 minute long sessions.